Welcome to the Ricky Mathews Show from the Citizens Bank Studio. Hope you're having a great day today. Listen, no big speeches or anything to give. We're going to jump right into it today with my friend Jeff Duncan. Listen, don't be a hater. Don't be a hater. But Jeff's been, as you know, if you're a regular listener, hasn't been with us the last couple of weeks because he's been in Italy, just enjoying life for 2 weeks. Read 2 books, drank some wine. I'm sure ate a lot of bread. You know the drill. But anyway, Jeff's back today, and we'll talk about his trip to Italy, for a matter of fact. But we'll also, talk about the Saints and some other stuff that's coming up. Jeff, how you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great, Ricky. You did a great description of my vacation. Although you were off a little bit, you said drank some wine. I can tell you there was a lot more than just some that we drank. And also ate a lot of pasta. The pasta over there is amazing.
Hey, listen, I remember, when Ann and I went over to tour Croatia, and then my son Justin, actually, who was in Madrid at the time, came over and joined us for the Dubrovnik and Bosnia leg of the trip. When I went there, I really didn't know what to expect. I spent a lot of time there studying. And, of course, Ann being sort of the master organizer she is, the trip was really well laid out so we could go visit the islands where her grandparents came from and all of this. It's just an outstanding trip. But, I don't know that I fully appreciated before we left that the olives and the wine, of course, the grapes that the environment there is so unique that they make great wine. And, the olive oil and the bread, it was just so incredible. And one of our servers said to us, and eventually, by the way, we added to the trip while we were there to go to a vineyard. And that was an awesome experience. We actually brought a couple of bottles of wine home with us. I wish we could have brought, cases home with us. But they said, "You don't know about our wine, do you?" And we said, "No." And he said, "The reason why is because we drink it all. We don't export any of it. It's that good." But Italy's right there with them, aren't they?
Yeah, that's a good point. I knew about Italy and their, history of wine, but not so much Sicily. That's obviously an island right off the west coast of southwest coast of Italy. But the Mount Etna, which just recently had an eruption right before I left to go over there, that's the reason the wines are so good over there. The minerals from the volcanic activity, they're in the soil, really make great grapes. You have a certain kind of grapes, but there's a great history, obviously, of food over there. I mean, it's a big part of the culture. And if you know anything about New Orleans history, I mean, there's a really deep, rich Sicilian history with New Orleans. A lot of the Italians that came to New Orleans in early days were from Sicily. So Joe Impastato and Sal Impastato, they have restaurants here, are both Sicilians. And the more people I meet with that background, it's amazing how many people are from that part of the country.
There's an Italian connection for coastal Mississippi as well. It's so interesting to see all these influences because it truly, the Gulf South truly is a melting pot. But yeah, Sicily, when I think of Sicily and that area of Italy, I can't help but think about The Godfather. I'm a big Godfather fan and studying, all that they went through to make that movie and how even the part that showed Italy almost didn't become part of the movie. They almost didn't afford it. And that whole story in and of itself is a unique story. But did you get a chance to take any of that in while you were there?
We didn't get to do the Godfather tour because of the volcano. It actually canceled our tour. We had a tour lined up. So that was one of the bummer experiences we had because we were all excited about it. So that's going to be next. We're going back in a year or so. We're going to definitely line that up. You're right. It's like maybe my favorite movie ever. So I was really excited to see some of those small villages where they filmed some of those iconic scenes from the movie.
So I know you've been all over Europe. Had you been to Italy before?
I've been to Rome and that part of Italy, but not to Sicily. And Sicily,
so when
it's totally different.
Yeah.
Very arid country. It's like not.
Yeah.
You fly into it, and the middle of the country is very arid. There's not a lot of rain. Matter of fact, the the week and a half we were there, it didn't rain one drop. So
Yeah.
water's, it's just weird that it's arid, but the coasts are obviously lush.
Yeah. So it's a beautiful part of the world for sure. And you had a vision of what it was going to be in your mind's eye. You even sent me a picture or a layout of numerous photos from the house you guys stayed at, which seemed spectacular. Was it what you expected, or did it exceed your expectations?
Oh, it definitely exceeded them. I mean, I just didn't expect it to be that beautiful, and really not that crowded in the areas we were at on the east coast of Sicily. Palermo, Catania, some of the bigger cities. They're obviously commercial corridors along the coast. But when you get off those beaten tracks, I mean, there's a lot of small villages, fishing villages that are very quaint, and you can really get away from the crowds. We were down in Syracuse. We went on a boat trip there, swam out in the Ionian Sea, which is, I learned, it's not the Mediterranean there, it's the Ionian Sea, and had some great seafood. Let's face it, Ricky, I mean, the European influence that we have here in New Orleans, it's all over the Gulf Coast, from France, Spain, Italy, all those areas that founded this region. That's the lifestyle that makes New Orleans so popular with Americans. I mean, you very much get the similar lifestyle of food, drink, the culture, the laid back kind of ethos that kind of makes this an attractive part of the country for Americans. You just experience it over there. It's very similar to that Mediterranean lifestyle.
Yeah, no, I agree completely. I was actually blown away by that. And, one of the things we've been really having lots of conversations here in coastal Mississippi and Mississippi in general about the need to do Gulf fresh seafood labeling. And a new law was passed this year, and the Agriculture Secretary, Agriculture and Commerce Secretary, Andy Gibson, and the head of the Mississippi Department of Marine Resources, Joe Spraggins, are in the bill to sort of oversee this. But it's important because I think about heritage and culture, and to go to Croatia and to see all these Croatians that came from Croatia to Biloxi and settled here, and you go back and look at all these old photos where there are these big, tall, like mountainous piles of fresh oyster shells, from the factories, and how we became the seafood capital of the world and all that. With hell, man, that traces back to Croatia. And of course, now we're getting into aquaculture of right off the coast, like off of Deer Island and places like that, of oysters. And one of the things that blew my mind when I was in Croatia is to see all these oyster aquaculture commercial operations that are, the water there is so beautiful and clear, and when you jump in it, it's cool and it's refreshing, and you really get to see where that seafood culture, where it came from. It's just amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, the menus at most of the restaurants are very familiar to people from the Gulf Coast. I mean, it's seafood, pasta, salads. I mean, a lot of fresh tomato salads. It's a lot of the same things that we have here come from that part of the world over in Italy. And it's very much a part of the culture there, eating, and enjoying the food. You learn a lot about the history of the country through the food. There's a great show, if you haven't seen it, any of your viewers or listeners, the Stanley Tucci show that's now been kind of brought back to life. It was on for CNN for a couple of years. It's back on Nat Geo now, but I would really recommend watching that for anyone. You learn about the history. Each show is about a different region of Italy, and you learn through his travels in that region and eating about the history. It's not really a food show. It is a food show, but you're really more of a story, a show about the history of Italy through the food and the culture. It's really a fascinating show.
Yeah, and it tours the whole. I've watched it the whole series twice. I think he does such a great job. See, I love those kind of shows that are more about getting to know the people and the culture and the communities. The food is, really the food is kind of the drawing card that brings the people together. But what he does such a great job of telling the history and where it comes from, and meeting families that have God, I don't know how many generations involved in a single business, for example, but he did such a great job at telling those stories. Yeah, I would highly recommend it. I love the way that Stanley would put give you the whole country and talk about the various regions and how they fit together. And he just literally went through the whole country. You when you think of Italy, you don't think of it as being so complex, but it's certainly, you get a vision on that show of how complex it actually is.
Yeah, he explains the differences between each region and how northern Italy is completely different than southern Italy, and even Sicily is distinct in its own way. Yeah, it's a fascinating show. They do a tremendous job, and I'm so glad that Nat Geo brought it back this year. And he's still got some more regions to go. I mean, he's not through with the country yet.
No, he's not. He's not done yet. But it's a good one. People need to tune in if you're interested in that kind of stuff. When we come back with Jeff Duncan, we'll finish this part of the conversation. And then, he hasn't been here, but he's been paying attention. A lot of talk about quarterback competition. Some of that's being stretched out just so we can get some clicks. But at the end of the day, we'll see what Jeff thinks about where we're headed. We'll see you after this break. Welcome back to the Ricky Mathews Show from the Citizens Bank Studio. I have Jeff Duncan from NOLA.com and the Times-Picayune. It's fun to kind of get off the beaten path with Jeff a bit because, he's extraordinarily well read. He's certainly a sports guy on the Hall of Fame and on the NFL Hall of Fame selection committee and so on and so on and so on. But, he was part of the Pulitzer team after Katrina at the Times-Picayune. He and I worked together at one point in our careers, and he's just a good guy. And we were talking about his cultural experience in Italy, his vacation that he just got back from. And we were talking about, food is this wonderful thing that brings people together. And one of the beautiful things about being in New Orleans, I grew up understanding New Orleans, but certainly living there and learning from people like you, some of the best food writers in the world worked on our team. And man, do I know it. I can't help but think about Anthony Bourdain. And for people who, want to understand what a great food writer is, God rest his soul, man. He was so good at what he did. His Parts Unknown series, Jeff, was incredible. But it gives you a sense when you study people like him, it gives you a sense of what makes a great food writer. And man, you have had the opportunity. You're friends with many of them, but you've had the opportunity to work with the best of the best, haven't you?
Yeah, well, I would say, Brett Anderson, my good friend and colleague, who now is at the New York Times, but still lives and is based in New Orleans, taught me just about everything I know about the food business and restauranting and learning about the different ways to enjoy a meal in New Orleans. I mean, the thing I like best about Brett's writing is he's not just the white tablecloth 5-star restaurant reviewer. I mean, he appreciates the po' boy shops and, the raw seafood, boiled seafood places. Everyone can appreciate that type of food experience. And I think he understands that's how New Orleanians experience their food. And he taught me everything. And look, I was fortunate because Brett and I arrived at the paper about the same time. So we became friends, and he needed kind of a wingman to go out to dinner with him on the company, I might add, Ricky. And
yeah, right, right. That's the way it used to be.
It was those were salad days, man. And I've probably eaten at every restaurant in New Orleans, 4 or 5 times because we had to go. One of the things I always respected about Brett's work is he would visit a restaurant 6 times minimum before he would write about it to give it a really fair, thorough review and evaluation. He still has that same type of attention to detail and thoroughness in his reporting. So, we were lucky to have him here for a long time. We've got a great writer now in Ian McNulty that is incredibly prolific and does a great job. The thing that's interesting about covering food in New Orleans, it's not just about reviewing restaurants. It's a big industry, as you know. It's a big part of the hospitality. So running a restaurant and running the business of a restaurant is a whole separate, form of our coverage as opposed to just, critiquing the food and the preparation. That's a whole different part of the business.
Well, I've always said that in my entire tenure as a CEO of media companies, one of the things that always stood out is that some of the smartest people in the building were typically in sports. No doubt about it. The sports guys, smart as hell. They just remember lots of stuff and smart guys. and that the food writers were some of the best writers in the building. I mean, and Brett Anderson, for people who don't know him, look up Brett Anderson. You'll be glad you did. And you mentioned Ian. You know, I think I've been following it closely. Obviously, I read every morning NOLA.com and what you guys are putting out. But Ian is doing a great job of capturing how so many of these great restaurant standards are closing, and the sadness behind some of that. I mean, there are new ones emerging, don't get me wrong, but he's really capturing a change in the whole restaurant landscape in New Orleans. And that's tough to watch, isn't it?
Yeah. And, the more you talk to people in that business, the more you realize a lot of it has to do with staffing. I mean, they have trouble getting good staff. I mean, my friends over here at Clancy's, right around the block from me, my home restaurant, they're constantly dealing with that. And they're one of the fortunate ones that have had people working there for decades and generations. But it's difficult. And you see these really good restaurants. Michael Galata, the great chef here in town, just closed 2 of his best restaurants. He's still got Tana open, but it was mainly due to consolidating the staff. It couldn't spread over 3 restaurants. So it has nothing to do with the quality of the food or the service. It has to do with just having enough people to, work a business.
Yeah, that's the story here in coastal Mississippi as well. When I talk to restaurateurs, typically the best ones have a great core group that stuck with them through thick and thin, through the pandemic, the whole 9 yards. But beyond sort of that core group that kind of keep it together, all of that periphery, man, is turning over radically. And it's a very tough business when it comes to that. It's sad, but it's true. And it's certainly New Orleans, with the number of restaurants you guys have there, it's a standout. Listen, coming to the Saints, I'm sure you were able to. Your team's done a great job. All the podcasters and all the radio guys and some of the TV guys, they're all trying to make the great quarterback competition, and it's a good one. Don't get me wrong, but it's way, 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 way too early to draw any conclusions from what they've done so far, isn't it?
Yeah, well, Kellen Moore said that a bunch of times, Ricky. He's stressed to us multiple times, don't get into evaluating the on-field work right now. It's an installation phase. This is the first really on-field installation that these young quarterbacks now. Spencer Rattler's been here before. He's been here a year. Jay Kaner's been here. But this is the first time they've gone through the Kellen Moore offense. So for all of them, they're just learning the idiosyncrasies. They're going through walkthroughs. There's no pass rush. Nobody's in pads. There's no physicality. So it's really not football. You talk to someone like Cam Jordan, they'll just roll their eyes at anyone charting passes right now or anyone keeping statistics. Now, I get it. It's 24/7. It's the NFL. Everyone wants to consume this content, but I just caution people, don't get caught up into anything you read where someone's saying someone's a little ahead. And that's not just with the Saints. I see it going on in Cleveland right now. I mean, this is where we're at in NFL coverage, where people are trying to evaluate walk-through 7-on-7 drills. Don't get caught up in that. The real proof will be in the pudding once they get to training camp. They go 11-on-11, preseason games, and all that stuff.
What is interesting, though, listen, correlations you can draw are between how Spencer Rattler in particular and Shook are doing with their throwing, being able to throw into tight spaces and stuff like that. You're able to look at emergence of people like Kool-Aid McKinsley. What? Say his name again. His last name. McKinstry. Yes, I got hung up on his last name, but watching him, kind of step up and hit the tight coverage he's bringing to the table, be able to look at some of our younger guys and see how they're doing. But both of the, Spencer Rattler's maturity is evident in his throwing, and he's coming along, and people are getting the opportunity to see Shook for the first time, especially his long pass and how zippy it is, man. This guy's got a beautiful arm on him, doesn't he?
Yeah, I mean, you can see the raw skills that led the Saints to draft both players, and, why they're willing to roll the dice on these 2 young quarterbacks and see which one emerges. It's definitely going to be a competition. I think it's going to be fascinating to watch. It's refreshing after all these years of covering veterans like Carr and Breeze and Jameis Winston to have these two young guns come in, and this is a great opportunity for both of them. And I think it's definitely wide open. I don't think there's any. It's going to be one on the field with these two players performing. That's the way it should be. But it's just so early in what they're doing right now. I mean, when they come back now for training camp, they'll go through the whole installation phase again. They'll get it again a second time during training camp. So, what you want to see is, improvement and development as they get more comfortable in the offense and as they start adding bells and whistles from the offensive staff. That's when we'll find out who emerges and who can perform. Right now, it's very, very difficult because it's, like I said, it's not really contact football.
Yeah, what's interesting though, even Coach said this. It's he's not looking at the passing so much as he's looking at each quarterback's ability to manage the huddle, to process the plays as they're coming in. We're kind of at that stage where you forget about how long does it take you to call a play? How's your leadership inside the huddle? What happens when you get to the line of scrimmage? Those kinds of things. That's what's more important to him at this stage of the game, isn't it?
Yeah, it's exactly what he said. And, there's going to be growing pains. Whoever wins this job is going to struggle. I'm telling you. I mean, I talked to Brendan Staley for the column I wrote on the 3-4 defense, and he talked to me about how they're going to play defense this year, and they're always going to change the look and their coverage after the snap. He said quarterbacks are too good in this league for you to stay in what you're in. So they're going to be changing things on defense, on offenses. That's what's going to happen to the Saints. Every team they play is going to take advantage of the inexperience of these two young quarterbacks and change things after the snap. And there's going to be some mistakes, man. They're young and inexperienced. They got to grow through that. So that's what I'm getting at is, this thing's going to take a long time to develop. No one's going to step in here, and very few are Jaden Daniels out there.
It's going to be fascinating to watch because you don't have a veteran quarterback in the mix. It's two young slingers, and they're going to battle it out. And listen, competition's good. It breeds excellence. So we'll see what comes out of this one. Jeff Duncan, it's been a pleasure to spend some time with you. Welcome back, my friend.
Thank you. We'll talk next week, Ricky.
You bet. When we come back, Caleb Sailors from the SuperTalk Mississippi News team will be joining me. We'll see you after this.